In this podcast, Christine Petersen will focus on how our bodies and our minds work and give you various tips and tricks, tools and techniques for understanding yourself, being happier in yourself, and living a better life. Every week, we will discuss different topics that might interest you and help you think differently to then change the way you approach life and yourself. Hello, Julie. How are you today?
Hello, Christine. In fact, I'm a little bit asleep, so I'm really happy about this episode.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I don't think you're the only one. I think a lot of people have problems sleeping. In fact, it is one of the really common problems. So today we're going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about why we sleep, what happens in the body chemically, and what happens when we're actually sleeping. If we're sleeping, of course. We will talk about why sleep is so important to us and what happens when we don't get enough sleep. And of course, we're going to talk about how we can sleep better, give you some tips and tricks on sleeping better.
Wonderful. So the first and big question is, in fact, why do we sleep?
Well, that is actually a really big question. The scientists have been studying sleep for a long time now, and they still haven't got a definitive answer. There are many reasons for sleeping, and what they have understood is that it's one of our essential functions, like eating or drinking. It allows our bodies and our minds to recharge. It allows us to be refreshed and alert when you wake up, we hope. Healthy sleep allows the body to remain healthy and stave off diseases. Our immune systems are working. And in fact, without enough sleep, the brain cannot function properly. And this, of course, can impair your abilities to concentrate, to think clearly, and to process your memories. In fact, there are some very recent findings that suggest that sleep plays what we call a housekeeping role in the brain. It removes all the toxins in the brain that are building up while you're awake. So it's cleaning your brain for you while you're sleeping.
Okay, interesting. So when you speak about cleaning our brains, what happens exactly in the body?
Well, let's talk about the different hormones. As you know, hormones affect the whole body and manage many of the body processes. And of course, the hormones also manage the sleep processes. So in the morning, you have a surge of cortisol that will wake you up. It gets you energized. And then at night, melatonin, another hormone, you've probably heard of it, you can get melatonin tablets. It helps you to get ready for bed in the evening. It helps you to slow down and become sleepy. There is another sleep-causing chemical. This is called adenosine. And this is very low in the morning. It increases during the day in the parts of the brain that control wakefulness. As it gets dark, our melatonin levels go up, and enough adenosine accumulates in your brain that you get sleepy. Now, the reason why we suggest that you should not drink caffeine in the afternoon or evening is that it blocks the adenosine receptors. So it will block the accumulation of adenosine. And adenosine, of course, makes us feel sleepy. And then as we sleep, the adenosine levels go back down to then start again the next day. Now, the other hormones, so the hormones that are clearly linked to sleep are melatonin. We've spoken about those. The melatonin levels are high during the night and low during the day. Cortisol. Cortisol levels rise rapidly in the middle of the night and then are at their highest in the morning. And there are other two hormones. And now this is really interesting. These are hormones to do with eating and with hunger. So there's ghrelin. This ghrelin promotes appetite. It makes you hungry. And then there is leptin. Leptin suppresses your hunger and the amount of food you eat. So, in fact, ghrelin levels will increase just before your normal meal times and then decrease afterwards. And leptin will come in. The brain will start producing leptin when you've eaten enough. It will suppress your hunger. Now, these levels also are linked with sleep and what we call the circadian cycle, the cycle of sleep. Now, if you disturb your sleep, if you have bad sleep, it will impact the rhythms of these hormones, and it'll also impact your metabolism. And this is then associated with obesity, insulin insensitivity, and actually diabetes, and problems with appetite.
Okay. So I know that there are different stages of sleep, but can you tell us exactly what happens when we are sleeping?
Absolutely. Now, sleep is divided into 90-minute cycles. The first cycle is called REM, rapid eye movement. And basically, this means that your eyes are moving rapidly back and forth. That's why it's called rapid eye movement. And then we have non-rapid eye movement, NREM, which is where the eyes are not moving. And these cycles are in 90-minute cycles, and they repeat during the night. So during the rapid eye movement, REM, this is where we have the highest brain activity while we're sleeping. And this is where you're dreaming, actually. You're in REM when you dream. The REM first happens about an hour and a half, 90 minutes after you fall asleep. And it happens every 90 minutes, hour and a half. In adults, it's a relatively short sleep stage, and it then gets longer every cycle. What it does in the brain is it allows us to help restore our energy to the brain and body. While we are in REM, our bodies are completely immobilized and relaxed. Now, this is possibly so that you don't start acting out your dreams. So the people who sleepwalk or who move a lot in their dreams, maybe their REM, their immobility has not been done enough. They're not immobile enough.
Okay.
It enhances learning and memory, and it's absolutely vital for your emotional health. Now, that's the REM. Most of our sleep, however, happens in the non-REM, non-rapid eye movement, and there are 3 stages. The first stage is the stage of light sleep. This is, when you're just between awake and falling asleep, you're just going in. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is when you have started sleeping. This is when you are disengaged from your surroundings and actually your body temperature drops. And then stage 3 is the deep sleep stage. This is where tissue growth, so your tissues are growing, your tissue repair in your body is happening, and your energy is being restored. And it's during this stage that several hormones are released that control the functions, different functions ranging from growth and development, especially in children, but also in adults. We continue to develop our cells, and also appetite.
Okay. So you mentioned before that thanks to sleep, we can clean the toxins in our body, but are there other reasons why sleep is so important?
Well, it's, as we said, it's just as important as eating and drinking. There's Natalie Armstrong, who's a sleep expert at Sealy, has given 5 ways that sleep can improve your health. So it can improve your mental health. So, for example, we all know how it feels when we're not sleeping well. We get irritable, we may get more depressed, more anxious, and basically sleep plays an extremely important role in our mental health. If we don't sleep enough, then our bodies will start producing too much cortisol, the stress hormone, and it will also be harder for us to rationalize our worries and our thoughts.
Okay.
Now, it can also help you regulate your weight. If you're not resting and relaxing enough, your metabolism can be lowered. And in fact, they did some studies. After just 4 days of poor sleep, your body's ability to process insulin is lowered. So this means it's harder to get the fats away from your bloodstream, and then your body will store the fats as fat instead. It can, if you're sleeping badly, your decision-making abilities and maybe your impulse control are lowered. So then, of course, it may be harder to say no to bad food choices. Sleep also, it boosts your immune system. If you don't sleep properly, your immune system is impacted, and you're then less able to fight off the bugs and infections. In fact, researchers in Germany discovered that good sleep improves your immune cells, the T cells that we have in our bodies. And people who suffer from bad sleep are more susceptible to illness. And actually, if you sleep better, you most likely recover faster from any illnesses. So sleep really is the best medicine. Okay. It's also good for your heart. In fact, people who don't get enough rest are at risk of heart problems, for example, high blood pressure, coronary heart disease, and even heart attacks and strokes. They found that this is because bad sleep is associated with higher levels of a certain protein called CRP in the body. And this is a protein that causes inflammation. And this inflammation is linked with heart and blood circulation problems. And finally, sleep is a natural pain reliever. So you don't necessarily have to take pain relievers, because a good night's rest can help be less sensitive to pain. Now, this is because poor sleep can interfere with certain pain parts of the brain, and it will change how you perceive and react to pain and discomfort. One study that was done showed that just after one night of sleep deprivation, one night of no sleep, the region of the brain that senses pain goes into overdrive, whereas the regions that help lower the pain response stop working. So the worse you sleep, the lower your pain threshold. This is crazy stuff. And it shows how important it is to get at least, in fact, adults need between 7 and 8 hours of sleep at night. Sure, there are exceptions. There are people who sleep much less. Margaret Thatcher famously slept 4 hours a night.
That's my dream.
That's your dream,
you
exactly.
have so much time afterwards and energy.
Exactly. And that's the problem is, do you have the time and the energy if you sleep so little? So most people don't. They really need between 7 and 8 hours of sleep overnight.
Okay. And what happens if we don't get these 7 or 8 hours of sleep?
Well, we've already spoken about the reasons why we need to sleep, why it's so important. Now, what happens if we don't get enough sleep? In the short term, we're going to get tired, of course. We will impair our learning and memory, and we'll get irritated. We need to sleep to be immune, to have healthy immune systems. And we need to sleep in order to control our stress hormones and to maintain our nervous system. So if we have extra stress in our lives, we actually need to sleep a little bit more to make sure that it regulates the cortisol levels in our body. And of course, we talked about appetite and blood glucose levels. So enough sleep is going to help that. If we don't get enough sleep, then our appetite is going to be higher, and we are at risk of developing obesity and, of course, type 2 diabetes. We could get depressed, we could get anxiety, heart diseases, and actually even our life expectancy is lower. So it's very serious.
Wow, yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the big question is, how can we sleep better?
Yes, exactly. That's the big question. So I went through and found a whole list of different things we can do. And of course, some of these things will help one person and some will help another. And the great thing is you can always go onto our podcast page and you can see the transcript of this podcast, and that will then give you this list of things you can do. Now, of course, we want to get lots of light during the day, as much light as possible, because that suppresses melatonin production. And then in the evening, we want to have less light, lower the light levels so that melatonin starts to be produced. It's produced in the body automatically by the amount of light the eyes receive. The good thing is to eat breakfast. It kicks your metabolism into gear. It starts your body working. Get some exercise during the day, but not too close to sleep time. People who exercise regularly sleep better at night, and they feel less sleepy during the day. It also improves the symptoms of insomnia. We want to eat foods that increase our melatonin levels. And these are things like tomatoes, cherries, bananas, kiwis, oats, like porridge, pineapple, seeds, almonds, etc. And one of the really interesting things is an amino acid actually called tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid which is needed for growth and the production of maintenance of our proteins in the body, the muscles, the enzymes, the neurotransmitters. It's what's called an essential amino acid. This means we can't produce it. We have to get it from what we eat. Now, the interesting thing about tryptophan is that it helps the body make melatonin and serotonin. Mm-hmm. Now, melatonin, we've already said, it helps regulate our sleep-wake cycle. And serotonin is thought to help regulate our appetite, our sleep, our moods, and pain. So if we can get enough tryptophan, that can then help us produce the right chemicals in our body, the right hormones. Now, you can get tryptophan by eating a healthy, balanced diet. However, some people take tryptophan as a supplement to try and help them sleep or to calm them. They've been people who are depressed. Some women take tryptophan to try and ease their mood swings when they've got their periods, premenstrual syndrome. Because the theory is that these conditions are all linked with the amount of serotonin that the body produces. And L-tryptophan is a precursor, so it helps produce serotonin. However, there's not enough evidence yet to say, yes, this really works. So it might be helpful to some people. It might also be helpful to people who may have sleep apnea and SAD, seasonal affective disorder. You know, the feeling of depression due to in the winter, due to winter weather and actually not enough sun.
Okay. And can you get this tryptophan from food?
Yes, you can. And it's actually very easy. Turkey and chicken have a lot. Bananas, cheese, chocolate, Julie. Chocolate has tryptophan.
That's the good news.
Yes. I mean, you don't want to eat a ton, but a couple of pieces of dark chocolate before you go to bed is a great idea. Dried dates, eggs, milk, probably one of the reasons why they say a hot glass of milk at night is a good idea. Oats, so porridge, and seeds, soy, also tofu. And one of the really nice ones I like that I sometimes use is peanut butter, because there's a lot of tryptophan in peanuts. And it is suggested to have a piece of toast, no butter, because there's already, and then with peanut butter on it at night before you go to bed. As a nighttime, if you are comfortable eating a nighttime meal, because the peanuts produce tryptophan, and the carbohydrates in the toast help the body find the tryptophan in the peanuts. So that's a really great way of getting extra tryptophan. But even a dark piece of chocolate will work as well.
Which is great. So you mentioned that some people take it as a supplement. Is there any risk?
Yes. The FDA are not too happy. They're not completely convinced about tryptophan. It was recalled. There's some top supplements that were recalled in 1989 because up to 10,000 people who took them became sick. Now, that is, of course, if you're taking extra large quantities of tryptophan. And there have been several side effects such as muscle pain, nerve damage, changes to your skin, etc. So you have to be a little bit careful with the amount of tryptophan you take. I think the best is to not take it as supplements and find ways of taking it in your foods. Okay. Now, other things we can do. We were talking about warm milk, and in fact, warm milk or chamomile tea or lavender tea, just take some flowers and steep them in water. They're a great way to calm the body down. Make sure that your bed is comfortable, you have a comfortable mattress, you have good pillows. Make sure that your room is really dark at night, because our skin has light sensitive cells, and if the skin feels the light, then the body will wake up. It will stop producing melatonin. So that's why it's important to find a dark environment. Another thing to do is to start winding down, maybe an hour before. Start clearing your head. When you are ready to go to sleep, you can do a deep breathing exercise. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast, or a body scan exercise. Again, we'll talk about that later on. Some people feel that having a bath or a shower before bed, and warm bath or shower 1 to 1.5 hours before, because that will heat up your core body temperature, which will then cool down and help you fall asleep. And when we're talking about temperature, be sure that you have a cool room to sleep in. Because if you sleep in a cool room, it can help your body lose the heat, and that will allow you to sleep quicker and more easily. So if you're sleeping in a warm room with a hot duvet, you're going to have problems falling asleep. You should sleep with cotton clothes, or best is actually to sleep naked, because then there's nothing that's waking you up when you move, and nothing weighing you down. Now, another really important thing is to have a daily routine. Routines are really important because they allow you to maintain focus and structure and keep you productive through the day. And this can then give a signal to your brain to wind down once it's bedtime. Try and keep a regular sleep schedule, and don't sleep in more than about 1 hour extra in the weekends. So you should wake up at the same time every morning. Be grateful. So say or think of a couple of things that you're grateful for in your life. That starts the day in a positive mood, and it clears your head. You should eat lunch at the same time every day. Make it the largest meal of the day, and stay hydrated, of course, during the day. And try and avoid caffeine after lunch. Maybe you can have your after lunch coffee, and then that's probably it. Okay, some people don't get so affected by caffeine. I, for example, I can't have any caffeine at all, or there's no way I'll sleep. Try and eat dinner early. You should eat dinner at least 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed, so that gives the chance to the body to digest before you lie down. And snacking and eating late at night, it can affect your sleep. So avoid eating too close to bedtime. Now, I was talking about peanut butter on toast. You can have half a piece of toast with peanut butter, that's okay. But I mean, not just immediately before, maybe an hour before you fall asleep. Go to bed at a regular time, not too late, and have a routine in your bedtime. And try, as we said before, to get 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. One of the things that's suggested, we all have our mobile phones and everything, is avoid screen time. Avoid your phones, avoid PCs, avoid everything for an hour before bed. Because if we've got light coming into our eyes, it's going to stop the production of melatonin. And then we don't have the melatonin that will help us fall asleep. If you do use cell phones and laptops and things, then use what we call the night option. On these phones, we now have the night option that changes the screen color to a more red color. And this will minimize the blue light, which is the light that keeps the brain awake and stops the melatonin. Avoid noises. You may even want to use earplugs or a white noise device if there is noise around. Make sure your bed is used mainly for sleep, and try not to work or eat in bed. You can use lavender scents. I sometimes put lavender drops. That's a very lovely, relaxing smell. You may want to meditate and practice mindfulness. In fact, meditation has been shown to improve the length and the quality and actually the deepness of your sleep. And mindfulness can help us bring our attention to the experiences in the present moment without judgment. So we're staying in the present moment. We're not having our minds racing around. And actually, sometimes we just have to accept that we don't sleep well. So if that's something that's your problem, then make sure that you don't feel anxious about it. So just make relaxation your goal, not necessarily sleep, just relaxation. Postpone worrying and brainstorming. If you have difficulty falling asleep at night, or if you wake up during the night feeling anxious about something, what people suggest is have a piece of paper and a pen by the side of your bed, make a brief note of what you're worried about, and then you stop. You stop worrying about it until the next day when you're awake and it's easier to resolve. And the same thing, sometimes there's these great ideas that keep you awake or wake you up. Again, make a note of them and then say to your brain, okay, we'll talk about this tomorrow. So that can help as well. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, because that's great techniques. And what about going to sleep fast? Any other tips that you can give?
Yes. the US Navy pre-flight school has actually developed a scientific method to help its pilots fall asleep. And, you know, if a pilot can fall asleep in an airplane seated or in a war, then it'll probably help us as well. And in fact, through this technique, 96% of the pilots were able to fall asleep in 2 minutes or less, sitting in their airplane seats, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So there's 4 different steps. First step is relax. Now, for the pilots, they're in their seats. So the pilots were taught to sleep in a seated position. They put their feet flat on the ground and they relaxed their hands in their laps. Now, for us, we can hopefully lie flat on our beds and do the same thing. Relax our hands on the sides of our bodies, or whatever position we're in. So you want to start relaxing, breathe slow, deep breaths. Think about, just focus on your breathing, relax all the muscles in your face and let your forehead, your cheeks, your mouth, your tongue, your jaw go completely limp. The next step is to relax your upper body. Let your shoulders drop as low as you can. Allow the muscles in your neck to go lifeless. And then starting with your dominant side, if you're right-handed, start with your right side. Let your upper muscles feel like they're falling off your body. Then move to your forearm, your hand, and your fingers. Now, if a muscle is not relaxing, then try and tense it and then let it go loose. It sort of reminds the muscle to relax. Mm-hmm. And exhale your tension. Bring the tension into your breath and out. Step 3, you start to relax your lower body. Tell your right thigh muscle to sink down, then move down to your leg. Say the same thing to your calf, your ankle, and your foot. Your legs should feel as if they have sunk into the mattress. And then, of course, both legs. And then finally, step 4, you clear your mind. Clear your mind for 10 seconds. Now, the way they do this and the way I do this is pay attention to your breath. All you think about is your breathing as it moves through your nostrils and breathing in and out. The other way, other people find that holding an image in your mind, it could be an image of anything you want, something relaxing, and just concentrating on that image can relax you and clear your mind. And in fact, once your body is relaxed and your mind is quiet and has stopped working or churning, then you should slip away into sleep.
Oh, I'm definitely going to try this one.
Wonderful, wonderful. It does work. Now, you may wake up later. However, it will help you fall asleep.
No, but I will have some dark chocolate, so it should be okay.
There you go. Then you'll be fine. Yes.
So as usual, my final question, Christine, what is the main idea or concept that you want to share with us?
Well, I think we're back to awareness. Mm-hmm. As I always say, be aware of your body, be aware of your body's needs, be aware of the hormones and the stages of sleep, and be aware of the different things you can do to sleep better at night, and try out a couple of these techniques. Mm-hmm. Try out the US Navy pre-flight school technique, which works extremely well. And if that doesn't work, then try other techniques. My favorite technique is really simply just to concentrate on my breathing. And that tends to help me fall asleep quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I will. Thank you so much for all these tips. And I wish you sweet dreams and a good night.
Good night, Julie. Sweet dreams and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye, Christine.
Bye-bye, Julie.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. You've been listening to A Toolkit for a Better Life with Christine Petersen and Julie Charef. For more information and details on how to contact us, please see the podcast description.